To this session of AOLE 1 Part 2. We are really excited to be launching our virtual placement with Welsh Water. So we've got Annie Smith from Welsh Water. Now her title is Enro Partnership Manager. Now I'm laughing because Annie's going to explain what Enro
I will explain that.
Enro.
So it stands for Enabling Natural Resources and Wellbeing, and that's a partnership manager, and it's a grant title, but it's the name of the grant that we've got from Welsh Government. So that's where the title comes from.
Brilliant. So in this session, Annie's going to provide a bit of context to the site that we were going to be linking the placement to, a bit of context to Welsh Water as an organisation, and then we'll be launching the project brief that you guys will be working on. So we've got a presentation that we're working from. So this is going to turn into a bit of Boris here in that I'd say next slide, please. But Annie's launching that now. Have you got your presentation? Sorry.
Do you want my presentation?
Yeah. Yeah. There we go. So this is part of the virtual placement. This is a collaboration between Cardiff Met and Welsh Water.
Okay. And so do you want me to
if you could just introduce maybe a bit about Welsh Water just to start this presentation would be great.
Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is predominantly introducing you to the Lisbane and Llanishen reservoirs, which is the local reservoirs, and unique really because it's one of our only urban reservoir sites for Welsh Water. But before I do that, as we just said, I've got a bit of a fancy title. So I just want to say welcome and thank you for taking part in this module. We're really excited to be working with Cardiff Met and all of you to do this. So I'm Annie Smith, and there's my title, Enro Partnership Manager, Enabling Natural Resources and Wellbeing. And my role means that I'm working with partners, collaborators, community groups, all to support things like events, volunteering, social prescribing, training, education, monitoring and evaluation. So all of that is kind of within my role, really. So that's what I'm doing for the Lisbane and Llanishen reservoirs. But to give you a little bit of a background to the aim of this session, I'm going to introduce you a little bit more to Welsh Water, to Cymru, Welsh Water, and their vision for Lisbane and Llanishen. I'll let you know a little bit more about what the Enroll project is and how we're working in collaboration, and a little bit about why this site is so special. So I'll go into a little bit of that as well. So first of all, Welsh Water, a lot of you may have seen vans around if you are residents in Wales. They are the company that provides you with your water and then takes it away again and cleans it up. There's over 3 million customers, and they across Wales and Herefordshire. So they contribute about £1 billion a year to the Welsh economy. It's a non-for-profit, which is pretty unique for the sector. So every penny they spend, every penny you buy, and then you profit, it goes back into the company, back into you. So you may well see a lot of their vans around about upgrading water, all the pipe work and everything, and all of the profit goes back into these kind of projects. So I work for the visitor attraction teams, and as well as providing water to you, we have a lot of what they call assets across Wales, which is all of our reservoir sites. And a few of these have been turned into visitor attraction sites. We currently have one in Vale, one in North Wales, which is Llyn, and Llandegfed Lake, which is near Usk in South East Wales. All of them are operational, but they're not open at the moment due to COVID. And then we've got a fourth one that is due to reopen. It's been closed for redevelopment for quite a while in Pembrokeshire way, West Wales, which is Llys. So at some point, when COVID restrictions allow, we'll be opening that one to the public as well. And the vision for Lisbane and Llanession reservoirs, it will become our 5th visitor attraction sites in Wales. And like I said, it's going to be pretty unique because all the others are kind of in more rural locations where you have to drive to, whereas Lisbane and Llanession is on the doorstep to many people's homes. So it is nature on your doorstep, that green space. It does mean that just in the immediate location, just living around there, there's 30,000 people just living in the wards just surrounding those reservoirs. So the location will bring with it different challenges, and I'll go into that a little bit in a moment. But the reservoir was actually saved by the community quite a while ago. Well, when I say quite a while ago, about 15 years ago, there was a campaign to stop Western Power from putting in planning permission and building homes on the site. That didn't go ahead, and Welsh Water have taken over a 999-year lease on the site. It's owned by Celsa Steel, and they have been for the last 4 years carrying out extensive work to restore the reservoirs. That has now been done. So the one reservoir that was drained is now filling back up, and we are hoping to open it as a visitor attraction site for health and wellbeing and recreation in our capital city. In 2016, as I said, we bought the 999-year lease from Celsa, and only in 2019 will we be able to start refilling that. You can see from the picture that it was a painstakingly long process because the actual reservoir is a listed building. So they had to go through all the brickwork, and there was quite a bit of damage that had been done through the draining. In 2019, the NREL partnership was formed, and they got the grant from Welsh Government. In 2020, the dam safety works were completed, and in 2020, I started my role as well. And then in August last year, we went out for the planning consultation for the new visitor centre. We have submitted it to planning permission, and we're hoping that'll go to the April planning committee with an opening then, public opening in 2022. The visitor hub, it will be quite a landmark building for North Cardiff. There's going to be water sport infrastructure, sailing, picnic boats, that's kind of my side of water sports, paddle boarding. There'll be a restaurant, wraparound balcony, panoramic views, meeting rooms. There will be an access road and a car park. We're hoping to encourage lots of people to use sustainable transport. And like I said, quite a good bit of water sport then actually on the reservoir itself. To balance it, what makes it quite a complicated site is the ecology and the heritage. I've already mentioned that the one reservoir is a listed building. We also have 2 sites of special triple SI, which are sites of special scientific interest. One for overwintering birds, and the other one for wax-capped fungi, hence the 2 photos there. So in order to allow the public back onto the site, we're working closely with NRW, which is Natural Resources Wales, and CADU, because they're protecting the listed building, and other specialists to protect this ecology. So we're going to create circular paths, conservation zones, learning zones, there'll be bird hides, there'll be signage interpretation, and we're hoping to work with community on social prescribing and support people's health and wellbeing and accessing this green space, as well as creating Welsh Water's first Friends of group, which is it'll be an independent voluntary organisation to work with us to help care for the site. Part of the grant is to make sure that we work in collaboration. There's my full title, Enabling Natural Resources and Wellbeing, and it was developed as a partnership with Welsh Water, Reservoir Action Group, which are the ones who saved the site, Cardiff Council, and Cardiff and Vale University Health Board. And then we work with lots of other collaborators such as Cardiff Met. There are measures within Welsh Water that we have to meet. They've got that under the Making Time for Nature. I won't go through all of those different commitments, and this presentation can be shared afterwards, but it just gives you a bit of an idea that as a company we do have to meet environmental commitments as well. There's a bit of information there on the Reservoir Action Group. They were formed in December 2001 when they wanted to put the housing development on that site, and like I said, the local community did save this site, and it's very much they still formed the Reservoir Action Group, and they're still protecting that site and having a close relationship with us to make sure we're doing everything to protect that site for the people of Cardiff. Cardiff Council, they support all of the land around the reservoirs, the allotments, the Nantfowr Trail and all of that, so that it's really important that we work in collaboration with those landholders, because nature doesn't really have boundaries or fences, it needs to pass between them. They again have got lots of statutory considerations that they need to address, and they've also got the Cardiff Local Nature Partnership that sits under that department, and you can get further information on there on the Outdoor Cardiff link as well, which got loads of information on that one. And then Cardiff and the Vale Health Board, when this partnership was set up, nobody could envisage that we would be in a pandemic, but actually now more than ever that, accessing green space, volunteering, bringing people together is really going to help people's well-being and support their well-being. So they're part of our project board to help us all do that. Other collaborators, and this is just a few, you've got Wildlife Trust, the Fungi Society, RSPB, Llais-y-Goedwig, Cardiff Met, Cardiff Uni, Cardiff in the Vale, Play Wales. So there's quite a lot of people who are interested in this site. So what's so special about it? So there's lots of connections. There's connections that people have from their childhood and their history. So we're kind of going through these kind of different connections and looking at communities' well-being, accessing that green and blue space in that urban location, looking at the waterfront infrastructure, the community heritage, and also what can we offer in regards to community engagement and education for it. These are some pictures from the site. If nobody has heard of waxcap fungi before, that's fine, because I didn't really know much about them. But these are my photos taken from the site from the last time they were out. So the waxcap fungi are a particular type of fungi, and this site is one of the most important sites in the UK for them. We've got woodlands on site, the reservoirs, obviously, and then there's quite a lot of amphibians and reptiles and birds and all kinds of different things going on, hedgehogs, foxes, badgers, all kinds of things just in this small little location. But obviously you're here for this module to kind of think about how those connections work to numeracy and digital literacy. And you can I had a little think that we were talking about how we want to encourage people to sustainably travel to the site, and going along those connections, we're kind of thinking, humans and their physical activity, sporting activities, walking routes. Can you use one of those as one of your themes to think about sort of how digital apps and things could support that kind of learning, or even the walking routes? The nature, you can kind of have a think about sort of what it takes for how does nature access these sites. So the overwintering birds, where are they coming from? How much distance do they fly from to get there? Where do they go? And then you could look at the balance between human wants and human needs and how we protect the natural habitat. And that's really a big part of my job, really, to try and balance those two things up. So just a little bit more about the site. It's in North Cardiff. So yes, it will bring its challenges. 30,000 people living on the doorstep, houses all around it, people wanting to walk their dogs, people not wanting dogs. Dogs will have to be on short leads. People want to support the bird life. People want to support the waxcap fungi, and the people know nothing about it. So there will be different experiences, different challenges, and it's about harnessing all of those things together to allow the public to have access to that site. With regards to the environment, this site is really special to North Cardiff because although it's a wealthy area, if you look at the wind measurements, which is the measures of deprivation in Wales, this area is in the 30% most deprived physical environment domain, which means that there's quite a lot of local factors that impact on well-being, the quality of life of living in this area, such as accessibility to natural green space and the levels of nitrogen dioxide. So there's a maths view in itself into how they come up with those kind of statistics, really, and what kind of things you have to think about. It's, again, that sustainable travel. How would that, if more people were walking, how would that reduce the pollution in this area? We want it to be used as a local education facility. So you can kind of think of practical and sustainable ways for schools to access these local resources, whether that be through learning digitally or whether it be through how long will it take for my year ones to walk to that site? Can I fit it in within the lesson? That kind of thing. So, there's all kinds of various things you can have a look at. And also you could have a look at, have a little bit more of a look at Cardiff Council's One Planet Cardiff, who want us to be a carbon neutral city by 2030. And is that actually practical? And how is it practical? And what kind of things could be put in place? And how can young people support that? So they're kind of some of the sort of challenges that I've got to face. And then I am going to hand back over, but just so you know, I am here. So we're going to share my details, and you're more than welcome to contact me, and we can arrange a session, and you can do a question and answer session with me at some point in the future if that's going to be of use.
Oh, amazing. Thank you, Annie. That's brilliant. If you could share my presentation, which is the design brief, but this is just so exciting that unfortunately we haven't been able to go into schools, but we've got this virtual placement to provide authentic experience for students to create some digital numeracy activities. So this is the design brief. So this is working in collaboration, as Annie's just sort of outlined some of the challenges that are facing on the site. This is going to be on Moodle. I'm going to do a Boris now and say next slide, please. If we move on to the next slide, please. This just here is just some links for you. On Moodle, I've done a bit of a Moodle tour. On here, these are links to where the site is. There's a Google Maps. There's also a really helpful website as well linked to this. So this gives you a bit of background. You're going to need to do some background, as Annie's alluded to, yourself, to think about where is this, what sort of natural environment is there, what biodiversity, what animals are living there, all those sort of things you need to start to think about and research. Next slide, please.
Well done. There you go.
So as part of this placement, you've got a design brief, which I mentioned. We've been working with Welsh Water and we've agreed this is the design brief that you guys will be working on. So if we can go to the next slide. It's a numeracy task. So you guys are going to be coming up with a numeracy task for primary education children. So the children that are visiting the site, it's going to be a relevant numeracy task that's linked to the reservoir. So some ideas on the next slide. It has to be a numeracy activity. So you're going to need to use digital competence to create this. So it could be, for example, a worksheet. It could be a small video, an app. In the next few sessions, I'll be showing you ideas of how you can make these, and we'll be talking and brainstorming about this. This is just a design brief. You have the freedom to go off and do what you want. So in small groups, you're going to research, design, and then present a numeracy activity that can be used by visiting primary school children at the reservoir. A few little things you need to be mindful of. It should be cross-curricular. Think about using things like the numeracy framework, the digital competence framework. So, it's within primary school and it's relevant to primary school pupils. You'll be working in groups, small groups of 3 to 5. It must be relevant to the Lannish and Lisvane site, and then there must be links to the Welsh curriculum. Again, I'll help you with that on the module. On the next slide, please, Annie, and the next one. So we've come up with some suggestions. Annie sort of presented some of the challenges. But they could be anything. You've got the freedom to do what you want here. So you could bring some of the native wildlife that you'd find on the site to life. So we're looking at a number of apps, things like adders or the frogs or anything, the different birds. So we're going to be looking at apps that you could use to present your numeracy activity. As Annie's mentioned, suggested walks. There are a number of neighbouring schools. So maybe you could look at how long it would take a year 1 class to visit as opposed to a year 6 class. Obviously, I'm showing you a lot of outdoor numeracy. This is an outdoor site, so you could look to maybe present some outdoor numeracy that could be done on site. We're going to look at scavenger hunts, geocaching as well, could be potentially something you look at, linked to numeracy. QR code trails could be another idea. Again, you have the freedom to go off and do this, or it could be related to the water sports on the lake in terms of distance or speed travelled on a stand-up paddleboard or sailing. Annie, is there anything you'd want to add here in terms of any other ideas or anything that you want to elaborate with?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is don't go too broad in your idea if you're doing it, to kind of really think about what you want to focus on, because what I find that each actual area is a huge topic in itself. So don't try to fit in too much into everything. So if you think about the scavenger hunt, could it be a scavenger hunt, or could it be something where it's during the waxcap fungi time and they need to spot as many different types of waxcap fungi as possible while sticking to the path, because they're not allowed to walk on the banks. So it's those kind of things. How do they spot those kind of things? Or it could be walking through the woods, and what kind of outdoor numeracy tasks would be in a woodland as opposed to not in a woodland. So they're some of the kind of things I think. It could be, if you're looking at sort of physical activity as well, is even sort of like how long it would take you to walk around those reservoirs. So how would the kids work out that area and the distance, and is it quicker to go left or right on the different entrances, that kind of thing. So, you could keep it quite, straightforward, but what I find that is, once you've picked on a topic, don't try to make it too broad, because each topic is, I don't know whether you would agree, Nick, each topic has the potential of being quite big.
Yeah, and although this is for primary numeracy, still you don't have a great amount of time to do this. You're going to need to present this to us. So as Annie said there, try and keep it quite focused. Choose an area, stick with that, and then try and develop that, because you're going to need to do some research into it. Need to do some research into the area. So that's some good advice from Annie there.
And like I said, I don't mind if anybody kind of says, I've got this, is it relevant to the site? If anybody wants to come back to me and kind of says, is this got anything to do whatsoever with Lisbon and Llanishen, I can let you know. And I can also see whether I can put you in touch with anybody else. So if somebody wanted to do, for example, something on the, amphibians or the grass snakes, then, I can point you in the right direction of people who might know more than me, or will know more than me.
Me,
so
definitely.
We can do that.
If we go on the next slide, if that's okay. So again, it's important to think about, so this is for children visiting the site. Think about using your digital competence. We're going to arm you with and develop a lot of your digital competence within this module. So you could use some of the apps, you could use maybe some of the animation. It is being created for children. So think about, maybe you want to bring in some characters. Maybe you want to think about the characters that would live on this site. You're all used to using different apps for filters, stickers. So if you are making these videos, try and make them age appropriate, so for children, make them fun, age appropriate language. Again, use the LNF to see, if it's for a foundation phase, there shouldn't be a lot of text on there, for example. So use the curriculum document, the LNF, the curriculum for Wales. That's really important as part of this. And if we go on to so as part of this, you are going to be presenting in your groups in the final week. So in week 4, obviously you've got Easter to work on this as well. So you've got a few weeks over Easter. You will be presenting, think Dragon's Den, to myself and other representatives from Welsh Water. Annie's going to be there as well. if we go on to the final slide, so this obviously is part of the virtual placement. So you will be designing your presentation as part of this. You'll be showcasing what your activity is. This is only 5 minutes, so don't worry too much about this. You can use different presentation tools, Canva, PowerPoint, Prezi. We'll be looking at these within the module. It will be done over Teams, so you'll be just sharing your screen, but you'll need to be thinking about this throughout when you start to design, when you start to build this. How are you going to present this to the panel? This is an important part of the placement. So in the presentation, look to showcase your activity along with how were you able to meet the design brief. That's really important. And then in the final, if we go on to the last one, so this is linked to your blog. So in section C of your blog, I go through this in a lot more detail in the introduction to the module. But it's really important that you critically reflect on your experience, discussing the benefits you've experienced by undertaking this placement, look in detail at any employability skills. I mean, just from today, we've seen how a large organisation like Welsh Water has to collaborate with so many different organisations. I think that's been really interesting to learn about. Really important as well to discuss any challenges and how these were overcome. And that is your part of the virtual placement that you need to fulfill. So if you've got any questions related to the design brief, obviously get in touch with myself, or if you've got anything related to the site, then if you get in touch with Annie. Annie, anything else you wanted to add?
No, not really. Should I stop sharing?
Yeah.
There you go. Not really, but part of my role is with the nature. So if there is anything that you're really keen to think about, I can put you in touch with people. So at the moment, what I'll be looking at over the summer months now is bat monitoring. So that's something completely new to me. I didn't know much about it before, so I'm kind of learning on this journey as well and understanding these different things. And we're working with different ecologists as well to do it, and all of these people will need to know how to use maths and have digital competencies to do their jobs. So if you want to link any of it to professions as well, then I should be able to help you with that.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Well, it's really exciting just to think that this is going to be launched fairly soon. Hopefully it'll be open and our students will have an impact in terms of what they're creating.
Yeah. And I mean, depending upon what happens with COVID regulations, obviously at the moment we can't have too much community contact, but depending on what happens, maybe at some stage there will be some short visits allowed on site. I am a key holder at the moment, so we'll see what we can do.
Oh, well, thanks so much for your time today. I'm sure we'll be asking you lots of questions over the next few weeks, but here's to a really exciting project.
Yeah, good luck to everybody, and I will add, if I don't respond straight away, I will respond eventually, I promise. And don't be afraid to nag.
Thank you. I'll just stop the recording now.